You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and today I'm coming at you guys with my power rankings for week number 4 as I go through each and every single team 32-1. Giving them my opinions and just kind of breaking down where I feel everyone stands throughout the entirety of the league. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button, and comment down below. How are you feeling about all 32 teams in the NFL? Where do you think they rank? What am I getting right? What am I getting wrong? And just as a quick reminder, I'm doing a giveaway for some show t-shirts coming up pretty soon. I have the announcement video planned for later this week. So we did hit the 500 mark. Don't worry, I did not forget about you guys. I've just been sick. I'm still sick right now trying to record this video. So if I seem a little off, or if the video is a little bit short, I don't go into too much detail. It's because I'm just not feeling too hot right now, but I wanted to make sure I got this out for you guys. So let's dive right in. Starting with the bottom 4 teams, we'll go in groups of 4 here from 32 to 29. We have ourselves the Houston Texans dropping down to the bottom of the league. The Jets are sitting at 31, the Commanders at 30, and the Bears at 29. So the Texans dropping a spot, the Jets dropping a spot, and the Commanders all dropping a spot because I have the Bears shooting up the board 3 spaces here for the win they got this week. The Commanders did not really look good in their blowout loss against their division rival Eagles. The Jets did not really look good against the Bengals, and the Texans ultimately just not... As far as those 3 teams go compared to the Bears right now, the Bears are 2-1. They have a win that I don't think anyone really expected to get. They got another win this week as well. So, I mean, right now trending in the right direction. And if I had to pick those 4 teams, that's kind of the order I like them in right now. I'm not too hot on the Commanders whatsoever. And the Jets, they had one game where they looked pretty solid. You know, everyone was like, oh, hey, you know, maybe the Jets, Joe Flacco, but they're kind of back to where everyone thought they were. But the Bears, I like them at 29 leading this first group of 4 here. Again, you have 2 wins right now, maybe not necessarily the prettiest wins, but you have 2 wins nonetheless. Looking at the next group of 4, we have ourselves the Seahawks at 28, the Raiders making a massive drop down to 27, the Panthers at 26, and the Falcons at 25. So the Seahawks dropping 4 spots, taking another loss this week to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm just kind of... This is more so because teams are kind of moving around than anything else. I don't want to really say that this is more indicative of just where the Seahawks were because they didn't really lose by a ton. They lost by 4 points. It was a pretty close game against the Falcons. This is more them just dropping because some other teams were moving up and jumping them. The Raiders, they are the largest mover so far this season in my power rankings, and that's in both a positive or negative direction. They fall 13 spots. I was a little bit generous keeping them where I did last week, but after seeing them lose again and starting out 0-3, I am really starting to see a lot of the concerns that I had with this team going into the season kind of come to fruition now, and I'm really concerned about where this Raiders team is heading, at least for the duration of this season. Maybe they turn it around and can claw their way back. I mean, there's still plenty of games. You have one more game now during the season, obviously with the 17th game to maybe help you out in that win column, but overall, I am just not really high on the Raiders right now, and I don't really see them trending in the right direction, at least for the foreseeable future. Panthers and Falcons jumping up a couple of spots because of the Raiders and Seahawks falling here. Panthers, solid win for them. Did not expect them to get the win over the Saints. However, I am a little bit concerned, and we'll touch more on that when we get to the Saints, about their quarterbacking spot and ultimately that offense being kind of stunted. And I don't want to take away credit from the Panthers, but it's more so, in my opinion, just some issues going on with New Orleans right now, and the Panthers doing an excellent job shocking a division rival at home. Falcons going up 2 spots. They get a win over the Seattle Seahawks. Again, this was when I was going into that game, I talked about it. I like what the Falcons have offensively. It's just the defense that really is like the question mark for this team. They're a little bit hit or miss on offense, but I like the big playability and just kind of like shock value the Falcons seem to have right now on the offense. It's a fun thing to kind of watch them do. They really, you know, despite a slow start last week with the Rams, they really hung in there, came back late in the game, couldn't finish the comeback, obviously, but the Falcons boast a fairly potent offense, one that's a little bit more potent than I think some people expected it to be, considering Marcus Mariota's leading the way there. For the next group of 4, from 24 to 21, we have the Steelers at 24, the Cardinals at 23, Giants at 22, and the Lions at 21. Every one of these 4 teams here dropping down from where they were last week. The Steelers free-falling 7 spots here after losing to the Browns. I've got to say, the offense is really starting to worry me, and I want them to develop Kenny Pickett as much as possible over there in Pittsburgh before they throw him into the fire, into the Wolves. But right now, with the way things are trending, I'm just starting to feel like, you know what? maybe with how solid this defense is, we see what Kenny Pickett can bring to the table here. I don't know. I'm not a head coach, but I am a little bit interested in seeing what Kenny Pickett could do with this offense as opposed to how it looks right now with Mitch Trubisky. Cardinals falling 4 spots down to 23. A tough loss. They are now falling to 1-2 after a massive comeback victory last week over the Raiders. The offense is just it's not looking good. Again, they had the great comeback win last week, but between week 1 and 3 right now, with all the drama that was going on surrounding Arizona and Kyler Murray and, the DeAndre Hopkins loss with suspension and everything, this offense is really hurting right now. And I think that once we get DeAndre Hopkins back, we'll see more of what this offense was truly supposed to be. But right now, the Cardinals just don't feel like they have the firepower on offense to really keep up with like the juggernauts of the NFC. And I think we kind of saw that with them going up against the Rams this week. Even though the Rams didn't score a ton, it was definitely a mismatch per se going up against that defense that the Rams have there. Not as good as they have been the last few years, but still a solid grouping nonetheless with Aaron Donald there. Giants falling a spot here with their loss to the Cowboys in a fairly close game. Sterling Shepard going down to injury, the interception late at the game there. I mean, a Giants loss as often as they come. This is like a staple of their ways. The offense is something that I've really just not been able to buy in so far this season. I love Saquon Barkley and how good he's been playing. I think that's probably my favorite part of the Giants offense right now. The Kenny Golladay situation's a little bit ugly right now with some of the statements he's made to the media and everything, but I think that with how solid the defense has actually looked in New York, that is probably my positive takeaway from the team, but that offensive line got completely demolished. DeMarcus Lawrence was kind of having his way with the unit, and Micah Parsons was getting a ton of pressure as well. We're going to have to see some retooling on the O-line, or something needs to get better over there. And is Daniel Jones the guy? I guess we continue to try to figure out the answer to that question. Lions falling a spot in a tight contest to the Vikings. I'm really disappointed in that loss because at one point they were up 24-14 and I really thought they could come away with the victory, but ultimately just was not enough in the tank. The defense kind of fell apart late and the offense sort of stalled out. Amon-Ra St. Brown going down was definitely not a great thing to have happen to them, especially going late into that game. But I still believe in the Lions. I think that this is going to be a team, as they have so far this year, be a team that is in it week in and week out. They're going to win some, they're going to lose some, and they'll probably win a few more games than people anticipated early on in the season, but I still like what I'm getting from the Detroit Lions. The next group of 4 going from 20 to 17. I have the Colts sitting at number 20, the Patriots sitting at 19, Titans are at 18, and then the Browns are at 17. Now, I've got to say, the Colts surprised me more than anyone this week. I cannot believe that they got the W. I completely wrote them off in my picks. I spent pretty much no time even breaking down that game because I did not really think that there was any chance in hell that the Colts could get it done. But here they are, 20-17 victors over a Kansas City Chiefs team that most people consider a top 5 team in the league. Well, hats off to them. Defense looked really good. Offense was fairly sloppy, but that final drive at the end of the game where they drove all the way down, they milked like 9 minutes of clock to take the lead. Jelani Woods, their rookie tight end, with a couple of touchdown catches from Matt Ryan. I feel like that's something they're going to start to see a little bit more as Matt Ryan loves his big-bodied receivers, and Jelani Woods is a massive human being. I'm impressed with how they finished off the game. Offense is still sloppy, but if they can put together more of those long drives that they had there at the end of the game to steal the victory from KC, the Colts might have a shot. Maybe they're not as dead as I said they were last week. The Patriots dropping only a spot here in a really fun contest that was very aggressive and just an overall fun game to watch between them and the Baltimore Ravens. I only wanted to drop them a spot because it was a hard-fought contest. There were points where I really thought New England might steal this game from Baltimore, but ultimately the Mac Jones injury concerns me a bit now, and the offense falling a little bit flat. Mac Jones had 3 interceptions, and it could have been 5 if you count some of the drops that were right into defenders' hands, but Patriots' ground game is solid. The defense, I think, just kind of started to get overwhelmed with the amount of turnovers they were dealing with. I don't think that the defense is as bad as the 37 points are that you see on the board there from Baltimore. I think just the turnovers are, so many back-breaking turnovers. You're only going to be able to withstand so many of those, and the defense kind of fell over after a point. But I'm not too worried about the Patriots yet. Sounds like Mac Jones is going to be able to come back. Maybe it's like a 4 to 6 week injury, maybe a little bit longer. We'll see. They're still trying to figure out whether, he's going to need surgery or not. It sounds like Mac Jones's camp wants another opinion. We'll see. But right now, not hitting the panic button just yet. But Bailey Zappi or Brian Hoyer is going to be the guy going forward. It's probably going to be Brian Hoyer, but maybe we see some Bailey Zappi mixed in at some point. Not loving the Patriots, but I'm not completely going to bury them yet. Titans moving up 4 spots here, getting their first victory of the season. Hats off to them, I've got to say. This was a really tight game. They almost let it up at the end there. Finally getting the ground game going, seeing Derrick Henry start to move the ball, and Treylon Burks getting a little bit more involved with the offense. Really good signs there. This is a team that's very well coached. I think they'll be competitive in the majority of their games, and, they very well could have 2 wins right now instead of 1 if they had that made field goal against the Giants back in week 1. But I believe in the Titans. I don't think that they're a bottom-of-the-barrel team despite what their record is compared to the rest of the league right now. I think they're better than their record is, and I feel like somewhere in the middle of the pack at 18 is a good spot. Browns at 17. This is a big one here because they jump up 6 spots, and I'm very surprised at them sitting at 2-1 and how competitive they've been offensively. I shouldn't say very surprised because Jacoby Brissett, with good talent around him, is a pretty solid quarterback. He does have those moments where he's very erratic and like you're like, what on earth was that you see him doing in certain situations? But for the most part, he's a solid guy, and he's done an excellent job running this Browns offense in the absence of Deshaun Watson. And I think if he continues to play, just good, sound football at the quarterback spot, this team can float to a positive record by the time Deshaun Watson gets back, and hopefully Watson can pick up where everyone expects him to and kind of get the ball really rolling for this Browns team. But hats off. Defense looks solid. Offense is playing, I think, much better than some people anticipated, and I've been impressed. I've been very impressed. Next 4 teams we are looking at number 16, the Saints, the Cowboys at 15, the 49ers at 14, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 13. The second largest movement on my power rankings board this season, and it's in the positive direction here. The Jaguars at number 13. We'll talk about them in a second here. Saints falling 3 spots. I'm worried about Jameis Winston's health. I think that they need to figure something out and maybe give him a couple of weeks off, because with the ankle injury and the lower back injury he's dealing with here, I just don't know if having him play is the right thing for this offense right now. I know you don't really want to have Taysom Hill or, is Trevor Siemian still one of the backups over there? I don't necessarily know the entire depth chart of quarterbacks for the New Orleans Saints off the top of my head, but they've got to consider doing something else at quarterback maybe for a couple of weeks. I just don't want him getting worse. And you can tell that these last 2 weeks since that back injury, he has not quite been himself. I know he's a turnover machine career-wise, and, people are like, oh, well, he's just turning the ball over. Surprise, surprise. He looked really good in week 1, and the run he had prior to getting hurt last year, a very different player than what we're getting these last couple of weeks. I'm concerned about his health, and I think they need to sort that situation out. Defense, though, I like the defense, and I like the rest of the team. We got to figure something out at quarterback for the Saints, though. Cowboys move up a spot to number 15 here. Good tight win against a division rival here in a game where, they had the whole whiteout thing going on. The defensive line and defensive front of that team altogether is going to be the reason why this team can stay in the playoff hunt in the absence of Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb missed an absurdly wide open catch, but made up for it with a really nice touchdown go-ahead score late in the game. But the offense is clearly still trying to figure itself out. Hopefully it gets better over time, and once Dak Prescott gets back in, it only continues to get better over time, because right now, the Dallas Cowboys defense is a threat. Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence alone, those 2 guys are an absolute dominant pairing of players to be chasing after the quarterback, and if they can just get things rolling on the offense in the right direction, this is a team that, for all the jokes that people have been making about them and what have you, because they went 0-1 with Dak Prescott, now they're 2-0 with Cooper Rush, they're a contender for the NFC East, and I think that they're going to be pushing for a playoff spot right now. You beat a division rival, you win a game last week no one really expected you to beat against a Bengals team that people consider a playoff team. Let's not write off the Cowboys just yet. I know a lot of people want to, but we'll have to see how they fare. 49ers at number 14, they drop a couple of spots. I wanted to drop them a little bit lower here, and I was really tempted in doing so and maybe putting them around like 16, but I still really believe in the defense over there in San Francisco, and I think that Jimmy Garoppolo kind of getting thrusted into the starting spot, albeit he was the starter last year, he hasn't really been like in that role of being the starter, at least for this past offseason going in. He hasn't been getting the starters reps. So I think of this as like, and someone mentioned this on NFL Network, I forget who it was that said it, but like think of it as like, this is the preseason for Jimmy Garoppolo right now. He's going to need a little bit of time to kind of get things rolling. I think that this is still a playoff team with him there. And how far that team can go, I don't know. I really like the defense. They have some really good skill talent. I am concerned about them losing Trent Williams. That might affect things in a very negative way because he is the best tackle in the NFL right now. So We'll see how things go going forward, but I'm like 50-50 on the 49ers right now. I think if you wanted to say, oh, they're probably somewhere in like the high 20s, maybe that's a fair argument, and I'd let you have that. For the Jaguars at number 13, this one, man, I did not expect the Jaguars, even knowing Justin Herbert went in that game not super healthy, did not expect them to be as good as they were. They completely dog-walked the Chargers in that matchup. And between the defensive pressure, how good Trevor Lawrence is looking, how some of these skill players are playing far better than I think some people expected to, Zay Jones specifically. James Robinson looks like the guy he was prior to the whole last year's Urban Meyer saga, and essentially like trying to be like Urban Meyer taking a running back instead of just doubling down on how good James Robinson was the year prior. Jaguars are trending in a very good direction right now, and I'm here for it. From 12 to 9, we have the Broncos going up 3 spots here, and defense is fantastic. Pat Surtain has turned into the legit cornerback one that I think the Broncos and everyone expected him to be coming out of college. Defense is fantastic. Figure it out on offense. This is a championship caliber defense again this year. You have Russell Wilson now. Figure it out. At number 11, the Chargers falling 5 spots here. Tough loss for them. I think that obviously Justin Herbert being hurt is affecting his game a little bit here, but you want to talk about just like a complete fall apart by this entire unit. To fall behind against the Jaguars the way they did, I was very surprised. It just seemed like there's a lot of discombobulation on offense, and the defense was just kind of letting, like the James Robinson touchdown run, that just complete breakdown of assignments there. Did not really expect to see that from this team at all this year, and for them to have fallen to the Jaguars the way they did, I'm curious if this is a sign of, maybe this is what the Chargers are, or is this just how good the Jaguars are? I don't know how to what to make of that yet, but surprising nonetheless. Bengals at number 10. I keep them here because I don't really want to move them up for taking down a Jets team they should be beating, but I also don't want to drop them or anything like that because it's not their choice what the schedule is. They get the win. They got the job done. I'm going to keep them at this spot for right now, and we'll see where we go from there. Then looking at number 9, we have the Vikings going up a couple spots. They get a big comeback victory over division rival Detroit Lions. Really impressed with the way they looked. Fumbled a bit last week, but this week kind of got back to where they need to be and looking like the team that they need to be if they're going to challenge the Packers in the NFC North. So like what I saw from them this week overall, really solid showing. And again, showing some serious grit. You fall behind, you're down 2 scores to be able to come back late in the game, get like that walk-off touchdown at the end. Not walk-off touchdown, but a very wide open and kind of game-ending touchdown there late. Very impressed with what the Vikings did this week. Hats off to them for getting the job done. Going into my next group of 4, at number 8, the Buccaneers. At number 7, we have the Ravens. At number 6, we're looking at the Chiefs. And at number 5, we are looking at the Green Bay Packers. So the Bucs falling 5 spots here to number 8. Was a tight loss, don't get me wrong. However, this is more about just the offense's inefficiency. Their offensive line is clearly hurting. Lack of skill talent right now at the wide receiver spot because of injuries, suspensions, what have you. I'm a little bit concerned about this offense right now. Frustrations from Brady starting to get a little bit out of hand, I would say. And then, maybe that cools itself down the next few weeks, but people were talking about like a potential Buccaneers collapse earlier in the offseason, or like leading into this season, I guess you should say, because of what happened in the offseason. And I'm starting to think maybe that is the case. I don't want to say yes. I still believe in Brady and that team over there, but I'm a little bit concerned about what's going on with the offense over there. Defense looks really strong still. Offense, though, trending south. Ravens going up 2 spots here at number 7. Talk about an offensive performance for them. Really good game. I think that the defense is clearly hurting from some injuries at the cornerback spot, but ultimately they just brought in the Ravens signed Jason Pierre-Paul. I literally just had to look that up. I'll cut that out, though. But I had to figure out who it was. The Ravens bring in Jason Pierre-Paul to add some more pass rush there. So should be an excellent signing for a team that's hurting in the secondary, because if you can increase the pass rush, you shorten the amount of time that your secondary needs to be out there covering guys. So hopefully that helps things out. But offensively, Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate, and I would say he is arguably the number 1 guy for the MVP spot as of this moment. Really excited to see him just continue to play throughout the season, betting all the cards on himself, and he's going to get paid. If it's not during this middle, at some point, surprise, during the middle of the season, he's getting paid by the end of the year. Chiefs at number 6, dropping 4 spots. A shock loss to the Colts. The offense looked a little discombobulated. Defense looked pretty solid. They played a really good game against the Indianapolis Colts up until that final drive there, but a little bit of concern. You had Pat Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy chapping at each other, whatever you want to say. They're jawing at each other. And offense was just not quite where you wanted to see it, which is surprising because they looked really good the last couple of weeks. So for the Colts to come in and really give them some issues the way they did, this is one of those games that I think the Chiefs tend to drop every single year. I don't really have too many concerns about them going forward. I think they're just going to pick right back up and keep rolling. So no concerns from me. I'm not too worried about the Chiefs. Packers at number 5, they go up a couple spots. Big win over the Buccaneers and Brady. The little thing about Aaron Rodgers at the end there, kind of seeing what they were trying to do on the big screen regarding that 2-point conversion play there and what have you, was an interesting little tidbit of information to come out. I would love to learn more about that, but overall, good performance from them. They get the job done. Defensive performance is where I really, the offense is clearly still trying to figure themselves out, and they're like a missed play here and there from being an even better group than they actually are. So once they really start to get rolling, I think give it another couple weeks, we'll start to see this offense really start to get going. Dealing with wide receiver injuries and everything, the way the Buccaneers were going in this game, I'm not really surprised that it was such a low-scoring affair. It was definitely a defensive type of matchup here. But Packers, again, with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, and they have so much good skill talent around him, and that defense really feels like it is like a next-level unit. I like them at the 5 spot. And then to close out my top 4, starting at number 4, we have the LA Rams. At number 3, the Miami Dolphins. At number 2, the Buffalo Bills. And at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles take the throne. I kept the Rams at 4. Good win. You win 20-12 against your division rival. Solid outing. And the only reason I don't really have them moving is just because of the motioning that I had going on with the teams above them here. The Dolphins fly into the top 4 at the number 3 spot. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed with how how gritty this Dolphins team has been altogether. Excellent showing against a Bills team that, I think everyone picked against you. And you have a rookie head coach in Mike McDaniel who is coaching his ass off. And, the grittiness from Tua to come back in dealing with the back injury. And I know that they're being investigated for it being a potential concussion or whatever it may be. But, if it really was just a back injury, hats off to him for being no, I got to get back out there and leading his team to a victory in a game that just was not a game anyone expected them to win. You take advantage of a secondary that's clearly hurting in Buffalo. Hats off to the Dolphins. But I still have the Bills ranked ahead of them at number 2. And I just kind of alluded to why. The Bills' secondary was completely demolished this week going into this game. You're missing Jordan Poyer. Micah Hyde's done for the season. You obviously had 2 backup corners, not backup, but not your first-string corners starting in this game as well. For the Bills to have only lost by 2 shows just how loaded and how good this team really is. The defense was clearly giving them fits, and credit the Dolphins defense for being able to slow down a Bills team that I think people thought were going to be dropping 30 points per game, no questions asked. But for them to have only escaped with a 2-point victory, I don't really know if the Dolphins are a better team if you're looking at Jordan Poyer on the field, and once we get Tre'Davious White in there, and it's not Kyer Elam and whoever the other guy was starting alongside him. The secondary had a total of three NFL starts prior to this game. I think the Bills still edge out the Dolphins a little bit, but the Dolphins are definitely right there, and they are a far better team than I think anyone anticipated them being going into this season. And then at the number 1 spot, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I cannot deny this team for how good they are. They have just been week in and week out excellent on offense. Their defense has been a problem for most teams. I know the Lions had a little bit of a crazy game with them in week 1, but for them to shut down things the last couple of weeks the way they have against, a Commanders team that has put up some points here and there, and then the Vikings last week the way they did, the Eagles are looking like a very complete team right now. Jalen Hurts is making a serious third-year leap. It's an excellent third-year leap. One that, you have to give the guy major props because he's throwing the ball really well, running the ball really well. Devontae Smith is making absurd catches. A.J. Brown was the fantastic addition that this Eagles team needed, and I still cannot believe the Titans traded him away. But here we are, Eagles at number 1. Hats off to that team because, god damn, do they look like a good team at 3-0. But that is my power rankings for this week. I actually went a lot longer than I was expecting to. I'm surprised I made it this far here. Sorry for all the sniffling and the hoarse voice and what have you. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, have a good one.